Hey guys, welcome in. Hope you're having a good day today. I'm in a good mood because right now we're about to check out my absolute favorite sonata by my favorite composer. That would be Waldstein by Beethoven. Now this is a piece that I played, memorized, and performed multiple times. Like I said, I really like this one. So what the plan is for the day is I'm going to walk you through some of the cool moments, some of the cool themes, some of the cool chords, the way Beethoven develops and basically turns this into one of the greatest pieces ever written. Let's jump in. And right there, we already have our first theme that Beethoven's going to develop throughout the course of this piece. So far it's pretty simple. We just have then higher. But listen to what Beethoven does. He's going to immediately restate that melody, but drop it down a whole step. So lots of cool things have already taken place here. So first of all, we had this little melody. We started on C chord, but this is Waldstein Sonata, Opus 53 in C major. And the very first thing Beethoven does is C, D, G. He kind of drives to the key of G. It is a 4 chord C, a 5 chord D, and a 1 chord in the key of G. So yeah, it does start on a C chord, but that's all you really get. You don't ever get any other context in the key of C. Then he immediately, like I said, immediately drops down a whole step to B flat. Now, composers can go to keys like B flat, or as we're going to see in a second, it's going to kind of imply the key of F. He can do that. But within the first 10 measures, we hadn't gotten a good key of C yet. We're already starting on a B flat chord, going right to the key of F now. That's pretty crazy stuff if you think about it, right? A piece has just begun. We're on the second line. He's already like, just go directly to a B flat chord. And again, kind of push into the key of F. And then Beethoven does a very Beethoven thing. He says, well, we're in the key of F, but if we drop this down to F minor, drop it down again. I've had a theory professor who I said this was like chiseling away to chords. He called it chiseling away, like Beethoven has a chisel, he has a block of marble, and he's like, oh, there's an F chord there. If I kind of hit this here, I'm going to hammer this down and make it an A flat. Okay, now it's an F minor chord. Go hit it again and kind of drop it again. Now it's a G7 chord. So the same. Well, G7 is our original 5 chord in the key of C, and this takes us back to a big 5 kind of 1 in the key of C. I mean, yeah, it's C minor, but this is Beethoven. You can't really be that surprised by a mode switch. Okay, now does this sound familiar? It's an octave higher, it's oscillating, it's faster, but it's the same melody of. Now we're doing it here, but yes, you have to throw in the little extra note. Check out when we redo the melody. Remember up here, we did the melody, then we immediately redid it in the key of B flat. We started on a B flat chord and went to the key of F. Well, now Beethoven's going to do that again, but instead of going a whole step down to a B flat chord, he's going from a C chord up a whole step to D minor. So we're on C, then I start our second line on B flat. Now we're doing C again, but then we're going to start our second line on D minor. Let's check this out. There. Now we're in the key of A minor. Remember earlier, Beethoven did a little chiseling work to get to a new chord? He does it again right here. Now, we've had a lot of harmonic changes. Harmony is about to slow it down for a second here, but let's talk about this final chord before we go to this whole fast B chord section. So the last thing we get here is this A minor chord. Then Beethoven changes one note. A goes to A sharp. Now you may be tempted to see that A sharp goes to B, which kind of looks like it could be some sort of A sharp fully diminished 7th chord or diminished chord that resolves up by half step. But an A sharp diminished chord would be A sharp, C sharp, E, right? This is A sharp, C natural, E natural. That's your stack of thirds, A sharp to C natural. Well, we see this chord a lot on the channel. We talk about it a lot. I tell you, whenever you see this really weird interval, or if you flip it over, that's a sixth C to A. It's some kind of augmented sixth chord. And this is one of the few chords that's easier to understand, not by a stack of thirds, which is saying, hey, there's an augmented sixth. What is the point of an augmented sixth? Well, augmented sixth chords want to push out to the octave. Here's a minor sixth. Here's a major sixth. Here's an augmented sixth. Now it really wants to push out. The C wants to go down, and the A sharp wants to go up. Basically, the way these chords work is you just say, hey, I want to get to a B octave. Can I back up one half step in both sides? There's a C, there's an A sharp, and they both want to push out. And then you can fill them in a different way. There's the Italian, there's the French, and there's the German. Don't be too worried about them if you don't want to learn them right now. It's not the most important thing. You mostly seem to be able to recognize augmented sixth chord. If you want to know the three varieties, the Italian is the simplest one. It only has 3 notes. The German throws in the chordal fifth, even though it's not a fifth, but throws in this note. It looks just like a 5/7 chord, even though it's not. And the French has 2 tritones. But this is an Italian. It's simple Italian. We know that because it only has 3 notes. And then it resolves the way it should. A sharp goes to B, and C natural on the bass goes down to B. We get to a big B chord. Now, before we get into this next section, I want you to kind of zoom out a little bit and think about sonatas. We should have our first theme. We already had that. That guy. That's our first theme. We at some point should have a transition to a second theme. Now, you might be tempted to say, is that the second theme? It's not. It doesn't really... It could be, right? If that's the only thing we had to work with, maybe it's a second theme. You can't really say for sure. You'll see in a second that's clearly not the second theme. But what we're expecting in between the first and second theme is some kind of a transition to take us to the second theme. And we're also expecting that second theme to be in the key of 5, right? If you've listened to my videos before, you know that lots of pieces go to the key of 5. It's kind of their first major destination for pieces in a major key. So we're like, okay, how are we going to get to the key of G? We're on a B chord right now. So far, we're transitioning to the wrong key. We have a B, E minor, B7, back to E minor, back to B, E minor. But all this is over B's in the bass. And that's just a pedal B. We don't actually pedal it. I mean, I guess you could pedal it, right? But when people say a pedal tone, we don't mean you put the pedal down. We mean as if you were an organist that could hold down a long note in the bass. This is what this is. It's just the B every single beat. From a chord point of view, this is all just a B chord. A big B chord. And where do B chords want to go? Well, we should get to the key of E. So one big question we have right now is how are we going to get through this transition and then make it back to the key of, I said E, yeah, B wants to go to E. But I told you earlier this transition should take us to the key of G. So our first kind of problem Beethoven has to solve is how are we going to get to the key of G from here? Now we've seen like Mozart sonatas recently that kind of lead us along going to the wrong key, then fix it at the end or something like that. So we're kind of wondering, okay, we know Beethoven's up to something. How is he going to get us to the key of G, get us back on track? So check this out. So the answer is we're not there yet. We didn't actually make it to the right key. I told you all of this should be understood as a B chord. All of this should obviously be understood as a B chord. And it resolves as B should resolve. This passes the vibe check for a second theme. It's very contrasty to the first theme. The first one was duh, 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 duh. This is long held out chords. It's beautiful. It just doesn't pass the key check. Now, again, we've seen times where composers do a wrong key and they go back later and they fix this. We're kind of wondering when is Beethoven going to fix it. But before we dive into the how is he going to fix it, let's just check out this theme for a second, because it is beautiful, beautiful stuff. So Beethoven does this melody. And the way it harmonizes that melody is not too shocking, even though it does have a cool secondary dominant. G sharp, 7. Should go to C sharp minor. Goes to A instead. Resolves it deceptively. Then he just does it again, octave lower. What I personally did when I played this one is when I switched around the octaves, I also switched around emphasis sometimes. Like sometimes I brought the left hand. So not only did it go down an octave, but the melody jumped down too. And then in triplets, now, interesting, we just did the whole melody again. I mean, there's a running triplet on top, but the melody was still intact. But he didn't fix it. He didn't ever say, oh, I'm sorry, it was in the key of E. Here's it in the key of G. He never did that. We're still in the wrong key. And in fact, he's going to start this closing material out here where it starts getting more and more triumphant and stay in the wrong key, at least for now. Now, some of that can get lost. I mean, it's obviously supposed to be exciting and cool and dramatic, but you don't have to be overly concerned about chords, I suppose. But an E chord becomes E7 for just a second. We play an A chord. We play an F sharp 7, which is the 5 of B, which will take us right back to E. We're not going anywhere. These are just ways of celebrating the key of E major, which is what sonatas are supposed to do in the key of 5. They're supposed to get to the key of 5, have a little party, have a little celebration in the key of 5. Beethoven's just taking us to the wrong key and having this whole big long celebration in the key of E major as if that was the goal the whole time. Not G. Still key of E. Okay, now this is the end of this section, and we are still kind of wondering, are we ever going to make it to the key of G? But also, this is a really cool ending section here. He's not really going much many places like harmonically. He's just doing like back to our 4 chord, back to our 4 chord, 2 chord, back to E minor, B. And this is actually really clever. Beethoven keeps landing on these E octaves, or just octaves in general. And if he does the octaves, or he does the octaves even with a 5th, we can't know whether we're in the major or whether we're in the minor version. This is a really cool compositional trick where you've done some back and forthness. We got to the key of E major for a while, but you just now played E minor. So if you do this, well, is it this or this? You're not supposed to know. You can't know. Who knows? Cool. So what happens at the end here is kind of cool. So Beethoven has this new kind of motive he's introduced here. Okay, cool. We went to E minor. Neapolitan chord, flat 2, F chord, flat 2, Neapolitan. Now, if you go your B, instead of resolving down to E, like what B should go to E, well, instead resolves up by half step deceptively. We saw the 1 chord resolve deceptively earlier. Well, the B goes up a half step. We go to the key of C, which is our original key, right? Well, Beethoven does this trick to get us back to the key of C. We go. C chord. And then we go back to the beginning of the piece and redo that entire exposition. But don't forget that trick, because Beethoven's going to do that again, like right here when he goes to the second ending. This idea of you're going to a key, then resolve it deceptively to get to a new key. All right, second time. Wait, did they just leave out a measure? E minor. Is this a thing? Do some people leave out those measures on the repeat? That's weird. That's weird. That's not how I played it. Anyways, what the score says to do. Here's your E minor. C major. Just like the first time. And you say, cool, we're going to end the key of C. And you just jump directly to the key of F on the second ending. Now your C7 chord here. I told you to remember this trick. C should go to F, but C resolving deceptively up a step or a half step. In this case, up a step goes to D minor. Ooh. But Beethoven doesn't go to the key of D minor. Goes back to the key of F, back to the key of... And the development section starts out like the F chord. Now again, remember, it's kind of vague from the very beginning of the piece. It's to start in the key of C, and they immediately go to the key of G. It's to start in the key of G on a 4 chord. Doesn't matter. We start out here on an F chord in a very Beethovenian fashion. We are doing the original melody in the development section. It's possible that some of your listeners wouldn't even know that you're in the development section. They could be thinking, okay, we're just kind of repeating that same idea again, right? The same exact first melody again. Now, we always say Beethoven's a development guy, right? Well, this is what we're talking about. We have first idea of this. Remember that first idea? Have that and then this in response. This development section just starts out with literally, let's just do that for a while. Higher. But then Beethoven's like, let's do that, but speed it up even more. Instead of having the long, then long. Now we're just going to go immediately. Then it's getting faster and faster and faster. And actually, the last one, we don't even go back to the long. We just do 3 of these in a row. And now we jump to a new key, do the same thing again. Faster, and then 3 in a row. New key again. And this is where things get a little different. Check this part out here. I will listen to it first and we'll talk about it. Hopefully what kind of jumps out to you first of all is there's a sequence going on here. And Beethoven masks it a little bit with the octave jumps, the displacements, but we have... That's your starting note of the right hand. This one, and then that one, and then that one, then that one. We do this. Actually the same idea. So if you back up to the first one, A flat to D flat, G flat to C flat, F to B flat, E flat to A flat, D flat to G flat, C, and then stay on 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 C, stay on C, stay on C, stay on C. very Beethoven thing to do, right? So we have this big sequence. We're going to eventually get to C and just hammer away at C for a while. Pretty cool, isn't it? So science, if you wonder how Beethoven just pulls all these notes out of the hat, that's what he's doing. He's not just making them all up on the spot, but he's just doing a very, very, very clear walk down sequence here. Then the left hand at the end of that just starts just epic march down, entire octave. Check out from the C here in the left hand. Now, what we just hear there, another sequence. Yeah, C chord. By the way, this is that melody being developed from the end after we did this earlier. We eventually did. And we went to this. That's that melody coming back in with this little offbeat. So this now starts with this big. So every one of these starts on a chord, in this case a C chord. Eventually that becomes a C7 chord with a little like minor 9 in there too, just for extra crunchiness. And to ask yourself, where does C7, or in this case C7 with an added minor 9, where does that want to go? To F, which is again another sequence. Well, we're going to now make F into F7. Where does F want to go? B flat. So we do it on a B flat for a while. We eventually make it B flat 7. We eventually add the minor 9. Where does B flat want to go? E flat minor. So the circle of fifths sequence maybe that you studied and you were like, oh, circle of fifths, that's really obvious. Composers never actually used that, right? We just saw an entire fifth melodic sequence get to C and then start another sequence on march straight down from C to F to B flat to E flat minor. And then we get something new here for just a second. Check out this E flat minor part. Now, this is kind of weird and mysterious, right? But in a sense, the piece is beginning right now to make more sense than it has the entire time. From a form point of view, what I tell you never happened earlier. We're supposed to get to G. And we have seen many times composers trick us and go like, aha, I gave you the key in the wrong key first and we did the right key. Or I gave you the wrong key, but then maybe we went back to the right key later, even though the theme was in the wrong key. Beethoven just never gave us the key of G. He was supposed to. That was the agreement. We're listening to a classical sonata. We're like, give us the key of G. But he just didn't until right now. The end of the development section. If you check out this measure right here, we got this big G chord. We made it G7. We do C minor, which is the 1 chord. We do D flat, which for a second you think, oh, we're going somewhere completely different. But this ends up just being a Neapolitan chord, the flat 2 chord in the key of C. And then we get fully diminished 7th chord of G. Makes a lot of sense, going right back to G. And then from this point forward, we're doing G. G is what this piece is about. We've hardly played a G chord this whole piece. But G is what, not this piece I should say, but the rest of the development section, it's all about G. We have G chords. Let me scroll down a little here. Starting from this murky thing you heard down here. G. G. That's a B. E, which is part of a G chord, D, which is part of a G chord, G, B, D, G, G, B, D, G, B, G, B, B, D, F. F and G make a 7 chord. Literally the rest of this development section is just like, I've been making you wait till this moment, but we're going to do it now. We're for real going to play the G7 chord. And we do. We hang out on for like an entire page of G7. G. It's all about G now. All about G. All about G. Now, this is the recap. So the big question always is, how long is Beethoven going to stick with the original material? Sometimes composers do for a page or two. And when is he going to switch off and not do the same thing as earlier? Let's find out. All the same. He even goes to the key of B flat just like earlier, and then to the key of F by extension. All the same. This is one of those really cool moments where everything's the same, right? We even got to the same. Remember the first time we went to a G. But this time we go A flat. Sorry. B flat. Now, where should A flat to B flat resolve? That's a 5 chord to the key of E flat major, which he does for just a split second, then gets back to the key of C. Key of C. All this is the same. Even the key of D minor is the same. So when's he going to change keys? Okay, and this is how he goes off the rails. It's hilarious, right? He gets actually the same A minor. You remember the first time he just added an A sharp, and that resolved to the B. Which was important because that was all about B. We eventually went down. We did this whole staccato thing. We went B, 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 and eventually went to the second theme, which was in the key of E. So B was important because we got to the key of B. We hung out there for like half a page doing all this transition stuff, and then we got to the key of E. Well, now the way he changes it, he goes, well, I got to A minor already. Oops. I really shouldn't be on A minor because if I do this, everything will stay the same. So he goes from A minor, then she immediately goes F. This is one of those funny things when you're memorizing a piece like this, can be kind of frustrating because you're just like, at first, like, oh, this is so hard, it's so hard. But if you memorize it that way, it actually makes it a lot easier. I would encourage all of you who struggle with, like, you play sonatas maybe, and you're struggling with memory, like trying to remember when things change. Add some humor, add some fun, make up a little story, because you can kind of tell yourself, like, Beethoven gets to A minor, and you can remind yourself, when I get to this A minor with this E on top, this is bad. I can't be here. So Beethoven's just going to go, new key. Okay, cool, F. Then he does the same, I need to scroll down some for you, the same trick, of adding the sharp, just this time it's on the F. So it's F, A, D sharp. It's an Italian 7 chord. I think it's an Italian. I mean, you pass through a C on top. So if you want to call it a German, I guess you can call it a German. But either way, it doesn't matter that much. You have another augmented 6 chord, which you're going to push out to the octave to the key of E. Well, just like before, this whole section, even though we're on an E chord for a second, this is all an E7 chord. And E7 should resolve to our original key, the key of C. Not. E7 is the 5 chord of the key of A, which in a sense, in a weird way, that's correct. It's not correct. We shouldn't be in the key of A. We shouldn't have been in the key of E major either. But the key of A is a 5th lower than the key of E. So in a way, Beethoven's doing everything that sonatas should do. Like, this is exactly what a sonata should do. We should go to a key in the first section. Now it should be the key of G. And the second time, take the key of G, drop it down a 5th, be in the key of C. Life is good. Well, he went to the key of E the first time. So now he drops it down a 5th. He's in the key of A. So again, it's wrong. We shouldn't be in A. But it's also right relative to what he did the first time. And true to his word, he gets to the key of A. And this is our first true divergence. Again, everything has been wrong because it was wrong the first time, but it's been correct relative to itself, right? It went down a 5th. The transition got us to a key down a 5th and everything. That's been good. But this is the first time he actually changes it drastically from the first time. We had our key of E. We had our key of A. All this was good. This was all good. This was all good. And then how do you go from the key of A to the key of C? Well, there's many ways to do it, but one way to do it would be to first go to the parallel minor. Just switch the modes. You're in A major, just go directly to A minor, which isn't that hard to do. Beethoven even did that at the beginning of the piece. I said it wasn't really a big deal for Beethoven being the key of C and then go to the key of C minor. If you know the last movement of this piece, it's full of that. It's full of like C, C major, C major, C minor, C minor, C major, C major, C minor, C minor, C major, over and over and over again. This is key of A major. Just go directly to A minor. With no warning either. It should be, that would be the first time, that's what we heard. But this time it just goes directly to, but it's not even normal minor. It's not like A minor with the added G sharp with the intensity. No, this is A minor with the intention to get us to the key of C. A minor is the relative minor of C. So we went from A major, shifted it to minor, and now A minor is the relative minor of C. And now we're actually in the key of C, which is what sonatas should do. We should play our second melody in the key of C the second time. But the way he got there is just wild. Key of C, key of E major, which is wrong. Bring back the key of E, drop down a 5th, which is A. Take your A major, cancel it out to A minor. A minor is the relative minor of C major. Boom, key of C. But that's why those chords are so shocking there. I'm going to play one just to hear how it sounds. I want you just to hear how it sounds and feel the jarring transition. But then once you get that jarring transition to A minor, it's all smooth sailing just to slide right back to the key of C. Good. And from this point forward, it's normal for a while. It gets weird in a second here. But for a second, things are good. Like, this is what we should do with the key of C. We do all the same closing material things in the key of C, which is good. I'm going to skip ahead now to near the end when we get to this last kind of closing section here, how he rounds us out. Because before, we got down to this ending little... And it was weird because we were in E minor, then went to resolve separately to C, but then went to F really quick. It never quite was that stable. So let's kind of see what he does to actually close out the piece. None of this is too surprising yet. We had a D flat chord, but we've seen a Neapolitan in this piece already. Once again, he can go like, I'm going to C minor. Vague octaves. It's C major, C minor. We saw these tricks the first time. Again, we're wondering is, how is he going to not trick us and actually finish in the key of C? And the answer is, it's not over yet. The answer is, this is one of Beethoven's hallmark. And this is the last beginning. Is this the beginning? Or is this the beginning? Like, did we just start the whole thing over again? This is, again, one of Beethoven's hallmarks, right? So we're like, okay, good. We're going to finish this piece out here. Key of C. This could be it. This could be one last try at this. Then he could do some little or something like that, and he'd be over. But then just like the end of the exposition, he just directly goes to the key of F, which is bad. I mean, we did that at the end of the exposition because we're going into that development section, right? But right now we shouldn't be going to the key of F. We should be ending the piece, and we're already in the key of C, directly to the key of F major, and then, F minor. Now, why F minor? Well, if you're in the key of F major, your C7 chord should resolve this F. But if you're in the key of F minor, it should go to F minor. Well, why does that matter? Well, if you're in the key of F major and you resolve deceptively, you're probably going to go to D minor. But if you're in the key of F minor already and you resolve deceptively, you go to the key of D flat, which is where we're at now. We are restarting the piece. Not really, it's almost over, but we're restarting the piece now in the key of D flat. Man, there's so much I could talk about here. We could like go another hour on this piece. I love this stuff. But I wanted to point out this entire piece, you've been doing this figure of, and you probably shouldn't play the last note of the slurs loudly. If you've been doing this and popping notes, it's not very musical. Typically the end of a slur we assume is a little more released and not necessarily like microscopically quiet, though it is sometimes, but just like more relaxed, chill, definitely not popped. No bump on it, right? Except right before the coda here, Beethoven gives you two measures where he says, do it, pop the note. Which feels really good, by the way, if you play this piece like I have and you're trying to be careful the whole time. It's easier to flick your thumb and jump to the next note, especially when you're leaping an octave. It's easier just to like pop that note. Then when Beethoven says, you can do it, you're like, oh, my teacher can't tell me not to. I mean, it does feel really good. And it's obviously super exciting and punchy to get like the beats 2 and 4 punch. Then Beethoven fixes it here. By the way, this chord here is like an F sharp fully diminished 7th chord, but then he slides the A on the bottom down to A flat, which makes it another augmented 6th chord. Beethoven, once he starts doing augmented 6th in pieces, he won't stop. So this is actually a German probably because there's so many prominent E flats in there as well. Well, definitely in the left hand becomes German. So this is a German augmented 6th chord. Just like earlier, they want to resolve out to the octave, which again is G. We keep struggling to get to G chords, but when we get to a G chord, Beethoven always really makes it count with this big fat augmented 6th chord first. Okay, so this is my octave glissando. What I mean by that is the last movement of this piece has octave glissandos, and lots of people are terrified of them, and rightly so, because if you have a smaller hand, it's hard to reach them. You have to somehow do it with your thumb or jump with your left hand to do it. I don't have an issue with the octave glissandos. I'm blessed with very big hands, especially white hands. Not really an issue, but this section killed me. I remember learning this and just, it's not just playing this section, it's trying to wrap your brain around what's going on. This is an instance where trying to get some sense of musicianship here is hard because you're trying to do this. You actually hear lots of recordings do that. Where I think they're so concerned about getting those syncopated and they feel that scale. It feels like a melody. It feels good to go. And so all your attention gets sucked up there. But what's this? That's our original melody. Beethoven is developing our original melody. Now, I'm not saying you can't play this, it can't have some volume, blah, 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 but you know what I mean. This is like the original tune. Then you do it again, and it even gets the little hooks. But I can remember learning this page years ago, and like there would be times my teacher would say, there, you got it that time. And I knew in my brain that I wasn't hearing it. Then there'd be times that I heard it, and she's like, oh, you didn't bring out the left hand. And when I first learned it, it was just one of these things where like I am pressing the left hand harder and pretending like I'm hearing a melody while keeping the syncopated going. I don't know, it's just kind of like a tongue twister. I thought this was one of the hardest parts of the piece. I know a lot of other things are more intimidating looking, but just for me, just getting this together, somewhat sounding good and tracking that going on the bottom, I thought that was much harder than the octave glissandos, but let us see what Beethoven does with it. So what chord is that right there? G7. We've arrived, right? We're finally getting some strong G7 chords. Actually, all the way back here. Here's an F chord, and then 1-6-4 chord, C with G in the bass, and now a big G7 chord. Don't really do a glissando there. And then Beethoven goes, you know, earlier we played our original melody one final time. Doesn't the second tune deserve to be played one more time too? And this is sheer brilliance right here. We are two lines from the end of the piece. And we have no clue how Beethoven's going to resolve this chord because he keeps resolving things deceptively. He keeps going directly to new keys. He's not ending any sections really how they should end. So then right here when he does this, not yet. A flat. Nah. Come on, Beethoven. Do it. Just do it. Just play a C chord and the piece. We don't know. He just go to the key of A flat if he wants to. And start a whole new section in the key of A flat. I mean, we don't know. Is he really going to play a C chord? And there you have it. That's the ending. One more time. We get another. We shouldn't be doing this. The piece should be over. Why are we doing it? We're going to do it again. And your audience has to be thinking, I don't know where I'm at. Where are we at in the form? We had the first theme. We went back to the first theme. Then we went back to the first theme again. Then here we are again. And it would probably be too much if we went on for like 5 more minutes. But this is brilliant. He does it one more time. He really accelerates the progression so we get to the peak really quickly. And then plays a few chords, 5 chord, 1, 1, 1, piece over. One more small helpful hint if you play this piece, do not get to the ending and do this. It's very easy to like autopilot that rhythm, but it actually is 3, 4. You're welcome. Thank you guys for checking out the video. Hopefully you love Waldstein now at least half as much as I do. I'll probably make a future video about the final movement too, because I think really this whole piece is awesome. It's my favorite sonata by my favorite composer. I love it. Thanks for hanging out for a while. See you guys in the next video.